opportunity to show you the front pages on this Monday morning, beginning with the Times.
Doctors are to get a pay rise if they call off the strikes, according to the Times, as the Health Secretary is seeking to resume negotiations.
Doctors raise spectre of NHS strikes until 2025, warns the Express.
The Mirror is leading with super teacher hit squads as Labour plans to send in reinforcements to struggling schools.
Daily Mail says it's time to put the brakes on the damaging petrol car ban scheduled for 2030.
And finally, out of order, the Sun opens with fans' fury towards Australians at Lord's yesterday.
Well, batting on the papers this morning, we've got Christopher Biggins and we've got Claire Purcell. Very nice to see you both. Christopher, I'm going to start with the front page of the Daily Telegraph. I think this is really, really scary if this is true. Banks butting in and saying, you know, we don't like you, we don't like your business, so you can take it away from us. And they can make you a sort of non-person.
This is the beginning of the end, isn't it, really? I mean, if this is true, you know, and it's happening, it's just disgusting.
If a bank doesn't take you on, you can't take a loan.
No.
You can't do inter-payments between various people, whatever. There's so many things you just cannot do. You walk around with a wad of cash and say, I'd like to buy a conservatory, here's £17,000 in cash.
Well, I would like that, because I love cash. I think cash is fantastic. But of course, you get that, you get then criticism for having cash and problems. I mean, I think that what is so interesting, this is the beginning of the end, as I said earlier, because I think soon we won't be able to say anything. Nothing you'll be able to say unless you want to go into prison or something. I mean, it's just appalling.
Well, this is just the suspicion of the people involved that it's due to their views. None of the banks have said it's in any way linked. And in fact, it's quoting the Yorkshire Building Society in the front of the Telegraph saying that they never close accounts based on opinions or beliefs, adding that accounts are only ever terminated if a customer is rude, abusive, violent or discriminates in any way.
Well,
so I think there's a lot of ifs
well, that's
there,
anything.
aren't there?
That can be anything.
We need to get to the very bottom of exactly what's going on in these cases.
I had somebody phoned me during the week to tell me that they'd got a lot of work with the BBC, and it was cancelled. All of it was cancelled because they had given views previously on trans issues. And there is a department now within the BBC, you can be booked by a programme, producers, whatever, and then it goes to them and they say, no, don't really like that person, they've done this, they've done that. And they can then ban you from appearing on BBC programmes, which again I think is really scary.
Although
that is...
Presumably that, I mean, allegedly happened, but that
didn't
presumably
happen. It happened.
Well, they're alleging it, but anyway.
They're not alleged. They've got a letter from the department.
But what I'm saying is they could presumably take legal action if they feel that they've had work taken away based on their views.
Well, interesting. But we're getting to a situation where what you know, my bank can decide how I function in life or not, which I find really, really, well, it's none of their darn business.
And it isn't, and I think that's the problem. And there's a lot of ifs in that statement, as Isabel just said. And unless banks are transparent and set out the reasons why they're cancelling people's bank accounts, then we are all going to be very, very suspicious, because the people who are having their bank accounts cancelled are making statements. Doesn't matter if you or I agree with them, they are statements of opinion for that person. And for banks to wade in and say, you can't have your cash in this account because we don't agree with you, that's a really dangerous, slippery slope. So I would hope that there is some common sense comes back into this. We don't know for sure if that's what the banks have done. It looks suspiciously like it. And you can't have a United Kingdom that is run by a bunch of people just because they don't like your particular opinion, that they can make you a non-person. And I find that bit of it really frightening. You can't transact in society without a bank account. You can't get a mortgage, a loan. Even purchasing in shops these days, you can't use cash.
Yeah, I think the banks have a responsibility to come out and say what the reasons are for doing it, because where there isn't, you know, any explanation becomes...
But they've given you a reason that can apply to anything. That a reason.
Well, that particular bank, yeah. I mean, no, I don't think that's Farage's bank, but anyway...
we didn't mention his name.
No, well, he's one of the high-profile people who've been speaking in the last week or so about their bank accounts being closed.
This is another story which affects a lot of people. Front page of the Daily Mail. Ministers last night under pressure to ease off on their drive towards banning petrol and diesel cars in the next 6 years?
Yeah.
7 years.
I think it was always one of these most ridiculous deadlines that the government set itself. By 2030, no new petrol or diesel cars will be sold. Well, that is all fine, well and good if you've got the infrastructure to support electric vehicles, which currently we don't. We are so far behind the curve. But there are so many other issues.
Electric is yesterday's news. It's hydrogen. Is the future, and we've got nothing for hydrogen.
And this is it. We are always behind the curve when it comes to anything, any kind of new technology. And I think if you're going to put a ban on something, you need to have the alternative ready to go. And the problem with electric cars is they are expensive to purchase. They are, in some cases, almost double the price of a second-hand car. The second-hand market for electric vehicles is also really iffy because nobody quite knows the length of life a battery has, how a car is going to perform in 5-10 years' time. Whereas if it's a petrol or diesel car, you kind of know what you're getting, you know what you're dealing with, and people can fix them. So I think there's an awful long way to go before electric cars are the norm. I think that they are also not that great for the environment, which is something the environmentalists are not looking at. Lithium ion that produces in the batteries is incredibly labour intensive and damaging to the environment.
And they're not sure they can recycle it.
Absolutely. So if you cannot recycle it, then it kind of brings the whole thing into the perspective of it doesn't work. So I think that the government needs to back off this.
You have an electric car, Biggins?
I do, yeah. I've had it for 6 years. Well, I've had 2 lots of electric cars. I like the idea of them, but of course you're right. Hydrogen should have been what they went with. I mean, that no thought was given to that. It's a bit like diesel, and how we're losing out on that now. I mean, it's a real problem. I love it, but I love my electric car only because I use it in central London. I don't go. Long distance terrifies me. I mean, I've been on motorways sometimes, and you think, "Am I going to last time?"
Yeah.
What do I
do?
Is
that you or the car?
Oh, that's me. But it is a problem.
Biggins, tell us about this survey that the Guardian's leading with this morning about, almost 3/4 of us suspect that the free NHS is going to be a thing of the past in the next decade.
Well, I think something has to be done. Obviously, we all think something has to be done with the NHS. And I've said on this programme before that I think we should pay for various things, not get everything. I don't want people to be, looked into financially, but I do think that there are certain things that you should pay for. I mean, I had 2 operations, my knee, a brand new knee, and on the NHS, and I had also a new valve put into my heart. Now, those operations cost about £60,000, which is a lot of money. But I could easily have paid perhaps £5,000 towards it, and I think that's a very good idea. I think the fact that we can't go on getting this service, which is brilliant. The NHS is the most wonderful service if it works. You can't go on taking that for granted. I think we have to rethink it.
But the big danger, and I've been saying that the NHS needs reform for so long, the big danger is, of course, that they continue to charge us huge high taxes, but then also charge us at the point of use. So you end up getting stung twice, but for the exact same service. I can just imagine it being a revenue generator that just gets poured down, the loo in a just sort of wasteful way.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it will probably lead to any improvements.
No, I think you're right. Until they sort out the structure of the NHS as a whole, you aren't going to make it any better by just pouring more money into it. All you're going to do is put people off of using a service that they are already taxed on. If you're charging people to go to a GP appointment, should they be able to get one? Well, if you can't afford that, especially with everything else that is going on at the moment, if you can't afford £10, £20, whatever it is, then you're not going to go to the doctor. And then we're going to be in a worse health epidemic down the line because people are going to be missed. They're going to have treatments that are going to be expensive, more expensive in the long run. So unless you sort out the structure of the NHS, which is badly in need of it, but nobody politically has the will to do so because it's an uncomfortable subject for any political party to look at breaking up the NHS NHS in any way, shape or form.
They're too frightened by it, I think,
Yeah, they are.
because they don't know what they're going to find. Because what they're going to find is a lot of people taking a lot of money out, which they shouldn't be doing.
And not the right people being paid the right amounts of money.
Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely.
Claire, final word on inflation and who the public blame for inflation. This is front page of the Eye.
This is the public are blaming Number 10, and 6 in 10 of them say it's the Prime Minister. His record is poor on dealing with inflation. I don't think this particularly comes as any surprise. We've all seen inflation, which was meant to be coming down, has stayed stubbornly high at the moment. It has come down a little, but nowhere near as much as was predicted. So, and there seems to be no plan, and that's the other sort of disappointing thing from a Prime Minister who was once Chancellor of the Exchequer, who is meant to be pretty hot on these subjects, has been in business, to have no idea why this isn't working, how we can make it work. I find that it's a real disconnect for the public, and there is nothing coming through that you can see would make a difference.
No.
We have the highest tax burden in several decades. Nothing is working. Everything seems to be broken. Everybody's paying out more, and prices keep rising, and wages are stagnant.
Okay, and we're going to continue talking about prices now with Kate Hardcastle, consumer and retail expert. You two, thank you both
guys.
very much indeed. Back again in 40 minutes' time.